Welcome. This is Still Becoming, a quiet space for noticing the moments where life keeps moving, even when we think it's finished. I'm glad you're here. There's a moment that comes after a beginning, when movement starts to feel heavier than it needs to. Not because the effort increased, but because expectations did. What began as a small, honest motion quietly turns into something that's supposed to mean something, lead somewhere, justify itself. And that's often when people stop. Not from a lack of interest, but from the pressure to reinvent themselves in order to continue. Movement rarely stops because it fails. It stops because it gets burdened. What begins as curiosity or interest is quietly asked to justify itself, to show progress, to produce results, to turn into something recognizable. Staying in motion becomes indistinguishable from proving that the motion is worth continuing. And that pressure doesn't come from the movement itself. It comes from the expectation that continuation should lead somewhere visible. Much of what matters most continues without a clear narrative. It matures quietly. It develops at the edges of attention. It stays peripheral, not because it's unimportant, but because it doesn't need to be central to remain alive. Motion like this rarely asks to be witnessed. It doesn't explain itself. It simply stays in relationship with time. We're taught to think of motion as improvement, forward as better, more as necessary. But improvement implies judgment, a comparison between what is and what should be. Continuation is different. It's relational, not evaluative. To continue is simply to remain engaged without demanding transformation. Not everything needs to grow larger, faster, or more defined to be worth staying with. Some beginnings don't move in straight lines. They pause. They wait. They recede from view. This is often mistaken for abandonment. But many things aren't finished because they failed. They're unfinished because they're still working. Time spent simmering is not wasted. Returning later doesn't invalidate the earlier motion. It completes it in a different season. In closing, staying in motion doesn't require you to become someone else. It doesn't ask you to turn what you're doing into a statement or a story or a future you have to defend. Some things move forward quietly. Some continue without changing form. Some stay exactly what they are and deepen anyway. Motion like that doesn't need to be impressive. It doesn't need to resolve. It only needs to be allowed to keep going without being asked to become more than it is. If something in you shifted while listening, let it move at its own pace. We'll continue next time.